Okay, so here we are. We've got our head still trimmed in. We've got our vise squared up. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna square this piece of aluminum. It's just a piece of 1x2x3-ish stock. Was a setup what it looked like for a CNC job. So we need to machine all 6 sides of this. We need to do it in a system that is going to make our part square, not just machined on all 6 sides. All 6 sides being machined does not equal a square part. So we're going to go through a rotation of machining this part. We're going to be using our fly cutter. Fly cutter is just our standard everyday tool. This is going to be something that's found in your box. This is one of our lathe cutters. So cemented carbide, and all I've done is I've put about a 35-degree angle on there, and I've given it a small radius on the edge. All I'm trying to do is disperse this cutting edge, just make it larger so that as I'm cutting across there, I'm not hitting on a really small sharp corner that's going to degrade the edge fast. I'm working on something that's going to distribute some of the heat and pressure as I go across there. So I've got that. I've got my fly cutter already set up. You want to set that up so that it's going to be about as small as it can be. It's going to be traveling across like this, and it just needs to be able to get beyond the widest part, which is 2 inches of this part. So I'm hanging out just a little bit, but I could tighten it up a little bit. I think I'm going to leave it where it's at. I also have some parallels, which are found in your box. And then I have a 5/8 dowel pen. I use these 5/8 dowel pens a lot just to square up parts because they fit in the T-slots real well. This is not in your box, but any kind of piece of 3/4 inch, 3/8, 1/4 inch stock, anything like that will work just fine. And I also grabbed a small square out of your toolkit. So you have your indicator and some type of coil adapter inside either your box on the machine or your student checkout box. So we're gonna go ahead and get this thing started, get it put in the vise, and we'll get going on it. So I make sure that my table's loose, and I'm gonna bring my vise over. Oh, right there, I'll take care of that. I'm gonna go ahead and put my fly cutter in the quill. So 3/4 inch shank on there. I'm gonna tighten it up. I always wanna make sure that when I pull the handle off, or when I pull the vise handle out or take my hand away, I'm taking that vise handle with me. I do not want to leave that thing on and start to spindle up. I'm gonna clear my work area out because this is gonna make a little bit of a mess. I'm gonna make sure that my red box, my machine mounted box, is cleaned up, closed up, so it's not gonna get any chips in it. I already checked my parallels to make sure that they are nice and flat. So set those in there. I already checked my vise to make sure that it was square and clean. From here on, I can go ahead and put my part in. So I'm gonna work on the largest surface first, and kind of the process of going through this, I'm gonna go one, and then I'm gonna go to another side. So I'm gonna machine this side, then I'm gonna put it in like this, and I'm gonna machine this side. So then from there, I'm gonna go down like this, and now I have these 2 sides that'll be then square to each other. So then from this, I'll hit side 3. When I'm at side 3, that's probably where this is gonna come into play. I'm gonna set this in because I don't know how far off this edge is. And if this edge were to be wobbly down the side or super janky, I can use this roll to help hold that in there and keep pressure on it and keep it going down up against the parallels. After I've got side 4 done, I have 4 square sides. I can come up and I can make this either 5 or 6, or I could do the reverse and do 5 or 6. That's how the process will work on this part today. So we're gonna start with 1, bring it over here, tighten it up, snug it down, hit it with a dead blow, I need to make sure that at least one parallel is down. Best case if both of them are, but since I don't know that this part is square, and I'm assuming that it's not because this guy will not go square. It won't sit in there tight. So that tells me already that this is not a completely square part that I'm working with. So get all my stuff out of the way. I've already got my quilt locked down. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and kick it up into the high gear. So it means I need to run it in reverse. So I'm gonna slow the RPM way down. Remember, when you're adjusting the RPM on the manual mill, you wanna do that with the spindle spinning. Get my part centered up, bring my table up. And feed across it pretty slow here. All I'm looking to do is get just a 100% cleanup on this cut. So in calculating RPM on a part like this, if I stick with my standard surface footage for carbide, since I'm using a cemented carbide tool, 600 for the surface footage, and what I need to do is figure out what my tool diameter is. It's about 3 inches in diameter. You tell me how high my RPM should be as I go across this. Now, feed rate is going to have some variation because I'm just doing some nice cleanup cuts across this thing. I'm not concerned about feed rate. I'm also not concerned necessarily when I'm going just across the surface in which way that I might go. So I can go either way across that part. So I went one direction across it and I'll just go right back across it. It will not matter either way as I go through there. So in a lot of the jobs that you'll do in the shop, not only in class, but once you get out into the workforce, they're going to start with squaring operations. Whether you're working on a manual machine or you're working on one of our CNC machines or a CNC machine in your job, squaring is a very critical part of what we do. I mean, a lot of stuff's done in a fixture, in some other kind of holding device, but especially if you're making any type of tooling or some other type of fixture, a lot of times we don't actually make the finished parts, but we make parts that make other parts. And so as you do that, you want to make sure that all of those things are right as you get started, because if you start out off of square or unsquare, it's only going to add to a multiplication of errors as you go throughout doing that part. Okay, so we're all the way back off that part again, so I can just get myself out of there, zip through, shut my spindle off, hit my brake. Surface looks pretty decent. So I'll take this out. So that was my surface 1. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and mark this as my surface 1. What I don't want to do is I don't want to get lost as I go. So I've already got this thing marked now as surface 1. I am going to go through after this, and I'm going to deburr all the edges of it. So when I flip it to edge 2, which is going to be down here, then I'm not going to have any kind of problem with it. Okay. So I hit it with a file. Okay. So there is surface 1. I'm going to pull my parallel out. I only have the one in right now. Clean this up, make sure that my area is good and clean. And so now I want to machine surface 2. So I think I'm going to pull it down just a little bit with my parallels, because that's really hanging out. It's going to be standing up pretty far. So I'm going to move it down some. Short parallels out of the box. I want to make sure that they are nice and square, cleaned, and deburred. So I hit it with a stone, just the edges of that, just to make sure that my part is nice and square and deburred properly. So all I'm going to do is just come through, and I've got that. So I've got my 1¼ parallels. I'm going to take these other parallels. I know I'm going to bring those back again at some point, so I'm going to keep them here on my box. Nope, probably won't need this guy yet. So surface 2 still sticks up pretty far. See if I've got something a little bit shorter that I can use instead of that. So those are my shortest parallels that I have to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring this thing down. I'm going to hold it up off of the vise just a little bit. No, that's still not going to be the way I want it. I'm going to try and find some shorter parallels, just maybe some inch or even some 3/4 inch.